What's going on, guys? For Dedicated Art, I am Chris Stoner. Here with me today, I've got Ryan McClellan, and as you can see down in the little thing below me, you can see that this is our review of Stranger Things Season 3. Spoilers. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. You've been
You
warned like
have
20
been
times.
warned. Yeah.
Now, before we actually get into it, Ryan, I actually want to, just for the audience at home, what are your thoughts on Stranger Things so far before we get to Season 3? The first two
So
seasons.
far, yeah, for the first two seasons. Okay, so honestly, it's so funny, but Stranger Things season 1 is kind of what started my whole YouTube presence as far as talking movies, and that was how Take 3 got rolling. And then obviously we know that, okay, some things switched up with Take 3, so then Dedicated to Art was formed. So right off the bat, I owe Stranger Things a debt of gratitude for getting me into this YouTube review reaction movie talk world. And then, like, in all actuality, Stranger Things season 1 was such a nuts introduction to, I mean, everybody loves some nostalgia, and what a way to capture the 80s than by to literally take every popular thing from the 80s and just mush it into one, like, hyper concentrated 80s nostalgia fest. And a lot of people don't like that, and that's fair, but for me, I just gobble that shit up because, like, it's so, yes, it's oversaturated, yes, it's kind of over the top, but I love it. I just love how crazy it is. And, like, literally they find a way over the course of even these 3 seasons to just shove all this 80s stuff in there. And as a person who really likes, classic rock and loves 80s movies and just likes the old style of doing things, there's a lot for me to love about this. And I love the horror aspect too, and like the very nerdy sci-fi aspect, because I am a sci-fi nerd. So yeah, I've really enjoyed these first 2 seasons. I think that the second season was different. There was 1 or 2 episodes that were kind of weak. There were some supporting storylines that weren't as strong as in the first season, but still, I mean, it's a pretty solid offering as far as, um, you know, what was it, like 8 episodes of television? So
9.
nine. That one was 9. Okay, so 9 episodes of television. So
Yeah, and actually kind of a similar story for me. The only difference being that like I'm not as big into a lot of some of that 80s, some of those 80s films like your Ghostbusters, your Back to the Futures, your E.T.s. Like they're not really for me, partially because I didn't grow up in that era, but I really appreciate how the Duffer Brothers took a lot of elements from those stories and then they put them into their own story. Which, yeah, it's over stylized and it's hyper realized. But you know what? I don't care because I love the characters. I love the setting. I think setting this in a small town like Hawkins, Indiana, was the
hmm
perfect choice.
it's such a classic 80s, like 3 kids in a small town, 4 kids in a small town. Like, that's just classic 80s plot device right there.
It is, and it works brilliantly because not only is it just the kids that you fall in love with, but the adults they actually remember to make likable adults. I mean,
Yeah.
and as we'll get into later in the chat, Hopper very quickly became one of my favorite characters on the entire show, and season 2 especially was where he went from being a character I liked to a character I loved, and why the season finale of this show made me cry. Again, we'll get there in a bit. Um, but I also loved a lot of the visual creativity. I loved the look of the Demogorgon from season 1.
Mm,
I loved um, I loved where a lot of the arcs went in season 2, especially with Steve. Oh,
yes.
Steve,
Yeah. He
Steve,
has maybe the best arc of the entire 3 seasons. Like,
yeah,
when you string them together, that's probably one of the best arcs. Him and Hopper, I would say.
yeah. It's like him, Hopper, and you could argue 11. And
Right. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, she's essentially one of your main characters, and we're talking about, oh yeah, 2 supporting characters. But to piggyback off of what you're saying, that's one of the great things about Stranger Things is every arc is
pays
good.
off.
Essentially, like, yeah, they're not all created equal, but they all have payoff, and they're all to an extent interesting to watch, and you're like, you always want to know what's going to happen next for each of the characters, and then they intersect at these points, and then other characters intersect with each other here, and they're just always mixing and matching, and you get all these different scenes with characters you love meeting each other and having all these interactions, and that's what you live for with this show. Is it's the character interactions and how they deal with fighting monsters.
Or even in like season 2, how, you know, I loved Mike in season 1, but season 2 he was just miserable the entire season, and it killed me. But you want to know something? I shut up the moment that L came back, because you want to know what happened? He smiled for the first time that whole fucking season, and I really needed that.
Yeah, that was a slog for his storyline. Yeah,
but it paid off because they kissed while the police were playing, and it was great. So yes, I was
gonna say, I think you might have been looking forward to that than a lot of people, but
I'm in the majority on that one. But here's actually the fun thing. Like, yes, I am a shipper. Deal with it. But this is actually a really valid point where, especially in a show where you have as many characters as a show like this or Game of Thrones has, you can very easily rush relationships. You can very easily make them stale and, bland. But what I actually really appreciate about Stranger Things is that literally every relationship, whether it's romantic or friendship, they're done beautifully. And it's even more impressive because, keep in mind, most of this cast are kids.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they're growing along with the show, and they keep turning in good performances every season.
Yeah.
And adding in new characters too. I mean, that's not always easy. We've seen it go wrong in other shows. I mean, even some of the characters that get added into shows, like some of my favorites, like Mad Men and Game of Thrones, they'll add in characters. I'm just like, I really don't care.
I could do without them.
Yeah. So, but for Stranger Things, I mean,
there hasn't been
maybe with the exception of Lucas's sister, but I didn't even hate that. She's just a bratty child. So you're like, all right,
well,
come on.
She was bratty, but she proved her worth.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is she had she was bratty kind of with a purpose. It wasn't just to be an annoying kid. It had some sort of purpose to it. And she grew as a character too. At least it felt like it for the pretty small amount of screen time that she had. So
exactly, and so with that, I feel like we got sort of on our basic, we
set the table.
So the table is set, the food's on. Let's dive into this feast. Starting off right off the bat. Oh, baby. Of course, the Russians are now getting involved with Stranger Things, and I love it.
The most classic 80s thing ever, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Ryan, talk to me about the Russian plotline of this entire season. How great was it?
It's so great that, honestly, the monster plot felt underwhelming in comparison, if I can say so. I mean, I was always much more interested to see what was going to happen to Steve and Robin and Lucas's sister, whose name, of course, I can't remember.
Erica.
Erica, thank you.
Can't spell
That's
America
right.
without Erica.
Without Erica. Yeah, that was awesome. That was actually really funny. That had me chuckling. But the whole time, and of course, that's what Hopper and Joyce are also. They're, dealing with Alexei, who is one of the best, almost non-speaking characters. Yeah. He did. Spoiler alert, he did. But that was just so fun to see those two storylines, and you knew they were kind of working their way towards the same end goal, but they didn't know it. They weren't obviously talking, because it's, on one hand it's kids at an ice cream store, and at the other hand it's like an adult police chief and some girl that everyone always every season thinks she's crazy, even though she's always right. So it was really interesting to see the first time I saw Russians. It's the opening scene essentially, and you're like, oh, it felt super cheesy. I was like, oh shit, here we go. It's gonna be, obviously it made sense right off the bat, because you're like, yes, that is the most 80s thing you could possibly do for a villain, and you're like, here we go, as we haven't seen this a million times. But it was really well done. It was really interesting. The fact that they were underneath a shopping mall in Hawkins, Indiana, it was something different, and it gave a purpose to those characters that were going towards solving that mystery. And it was fun to watch Robin help Steve solve the code, and then obviously they team up with the Toothless Kid.
Dustin.
Dustin. I kept wanting to say his real name, but I don't even know how to pronounce that. So it was like
Gayton.
Dayton.
Gayton
That's what.
Matarazzo.
Yeah, exactly. So he's consistently Dustin, one of the more funny, like enjoyable, interesting characters because he always has like some of the craziest scenes too. I mean, we'll get to it, but with his girlfriend is just it's solid gold. I mean, it's the most cringy secondhand embarrassment moment of the entire series, but it was so amazing. And so yeah, to kind of get a little bit back on track because there's so much to love about that storyline, I feel like, but it could have so easily been something that felt tired and worn and unoriginal, but the way they approached it, I mean, it just made sense. You have this technology to literally unleash monsters on the world, and if you can control that, I mean, you can control just about the world because there's nothing really anyone can hope to do against you if you actually, I mean, I can't say, maybe the only question is like, okay, what's their plan, what was their plan once they got in there, but I get the feeling there's more to come on that. But as setting the table for that storyline and how it pertained to this season, it was really interesting to see how exactly they pulled it off.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, of course, as you said, the Russians have been done to death in, everything from movies and TV, radio dramas, books, whatever. But it was their interpretation of how they wanted to go about it, where they used just the right, they ripped off just the right things by sort of, and not making it too on the nose, not to get political or anything, but and of course, how funny when we've been talking so much about Russians in the last 3 years here in America, but here it was just back to sort of like that Air Force One kind of
Yeah,
Russians.
Rocky Four. I mean, yeah, all
Yeah,
of that.
exactly. It was more just fun, dumb entertainment, and it made sense, especially with that one guy who was so the Terminator, it wasn't even funny.
Yeah, I, I mean, and that was maybe one of the characters that I didn't love as much, but because like every time he would just show up, it would just be like him and Hopper like roll around on the ground, and Hopper would get his ass beat and then escape, and then so and he's like rolling around on the bike, and I don't know that was not maybe necessarily as interesting, but with the inclusion of Alexei and then the whole interrogation scene for Robin and Steve, that was
Oh,
really fun. And Erica and Dustin having to try to like corral them into the truck and then getting and it gave stakes to characters that normally they would be like secondhand dealing with the monsters, like especially in
it
season
gave
two, like
everyone
Dustin
something
has
to
his
do.
pet. Right, exactly. It gave some, and it again, as we'll talk about it, gives you more to, because you're kind of wondering the whole season, like, where is this going to go from here? If they keep going, where is this going to go into season four? And I think that this is important for, not only is it interesting this season, but it smoothly will allow them to continue telling a good story centered around really just a place with monsters. Like it's interesting how they continue to morph the storyline and retread these sort of themes of the monsters from the upside down, how they're able to each season make that interesting.
Absolutely. So, okay, this is like now the fifth time you mentioned Robin, and I just want you to talk about her because one of the big plots. Speaking of the Russians, yeah, one of the big plot points was they're obviously they're the ones who built the Starcourt Mall because they're trying to use this big old drill to open up the gate, which 11 definitely closed last season, and we wanted
Mm-hmm.
to stay closed, but no, now we have to reopen it, don't we? Because we're Russians and we're evil. But who stands in their way? It's Erica, Steve, Robin, and Dustin, and everyone is giving Robin a crap ton of credit for um for being that breath of fresh air on the show and for being now the, at least to my knowledge, the first openly gay like main character of the show.
It
And you know what?
is.
Yeah. And do you want to know something? I fucking loved her. I loved her character.
Yeah.
And, you know, and also because, you know, I'm actually glad that they totally abandoned the idea, even like the notion that she could possibly wind up with Steve, but rather she could just be basically his ultimate wingman, and that's a
It is
relationship
more.
I'd love to see.
Yeah.
And also, side note, is it possible that she's actually Robin Scherbatsky from How I Met Your Mother, but this is back in her younger days, or a parallel
I don't
version of
watch that
her?
stupid show. I don't even want to talk about that. I don't even know. Yeah. All I've heard is that show has like the worst season finale ever, so I've never even bothered to start it. So
Fair enough.
I'll just watch The Office for the third time before it gets taken off of Netflix. Oh. But Robin, yes. I think that I'll start off with my negatives. That way I can finish on the positive. My only thing is, in general, in that storyline, but specifically, and I know this sounds like so stupid because it's a whole season of stakes, right? But when I looked back at it, it did feel like everything came a little easy. That's my only complaint. If you really kind of sit back for a second, I mean, it's cool to have like smart characters are cool no matter what, and especially smart female characters who can come in and just be like, oh yeah, I speak other languages, I should be able to easily pick this one up, and that makes logical sense. Yes, if you're good at learning languages, it's not hard to take a dictionary and translate. But it's just like, I mean, it came pretty easy to her. Then she was like using it later. I mean, it's a good callback here and there to try to get them out of trouble. But it just hit that whole storyline. I mean, they got locked in, and then the Russians. I'm sorry, they got locked in an elevator. The Russians came into the elevator, and they were able to like perfectly sneak out. So the whole time it did, and then they're being interrogated, and then just in the nick of time, Erica and Dustin come in to save them. And it's just there were some moments that felt a little. This was too easy. But ultimately, for Robin, what really matters is she was still a really funny, interesting character that threw the wrench in the works for Steve because one, he's kind of used to getting what he wants in the sense that, I mean, he was a star, um, football player and also just what do I want to say? Like basically just the popular kid, the token 80s popular kid where he gets what he wants and he was dating the hot girl and blah, blah, blah. And then now he's kind of down on his luck and he's best friends with a nerdy kid, without his front teeth. So he's changing as a person, but as he's changing, he still like thinks he's pretty awesome. And that's why he's flirting with all these super hot girls at the ice cream stand that he works at. And she's there to needle him and kind of make fun of him and throw a wrench in the works. And he thinks he's going to solve this code and go on this adventure. But it turns out that he can't do it without her. And so she comes in and she actually has some depth to her. She's interesting. She's funny. She's smart. And she immediately like bonds with Steve. And while I don't necessarily think, I understand that yes, nowadays people want representation in their TV and movies. I don't necessarily think you had to do that. I think you could have just as easily been, she just doesn't like him just because she doesn't like him. But no matter how you get there, in the end, she doesn't like him like that. And that's okay because they're really just, Maverick and Goose. They're
Exactly,
just friends. And that's what's interesting. I'm sorry, Chris. You don't need to ship everyone, okay? You don't need to ship. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
To be honest, I didn't ship them.
And I didn't either because they work way better as friends. I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, they're gonna end up together, and I was okay with that just because I was like, that's the trope. But once it didn't happen, I was much happier with. It's the three of them now. It's Dustin is friends with Steve, is friends with Robin, is friends with Dustin, and they're just that triangle of badassery that I can't wait to see what they get up to in the next season. So, yes, short story long, she had a great arc and very well acted by Maya Hawke.
Yeah. So who'd have thought that the daughter of Ethan Hawke
Hawke
and
Uma Thurman.
and Uma Thurman could really bring the chops? And I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah,
She's
got a career.
She's got a career ahead of her.
Yeah,
Easily. Which also brings me to another great performance, and as we've already mentioned, Steve.
Mm.
God, I see. Like, if Joe Keery does not have a powerhouse career after this show, we failed as an entertainment industry because that dude can act, especially during the interrogation scene when he is just getting pounded the fuck out of him,
Hmm.
and he takes it like a champ. I just need to. Seriously, I just want to just give that little shout out to him, where it's like, dude, you you know how to act. And actually also and speaking of that whole Robin coming out during that scene, I love how you see, he's like, okay, I'm kind of pouring my heart out to this girl.
Hmm.
I'm telling her that I like her, but then all of a sudden she's telling me all this, and I'm like, and then he has these perfect facial emotions of like, oh, you are interested in me. Oh, oh, oh.
As he's thinking it through, yeah.
Yeah, and I love how quickly he's able to be like, you know what? I don't care if we can't be together. I want you as my friend because you're an awesome person.
And
And
that
then,
shows how much his character has grown too.
yeah. So that's why I said Steve is my spirit animal.
I see him almost having like he looks nothing like him, and obviously his start to TV and movies is way different. But I almost see him as like a Matt Damon, where he could go from
Yeah.
doing something like this to something a little more heartfelt to something more like an action movie. I mean, if he grows up a little, buffs up a little, I don't know. But I mean, I could just see him having a pretty good dramatic career and then sprinkle in some movies with a little comedy in there because he seems to do both sides really well in this show.
Yeah. I mean, Andy has just great chemistry all across the board with all the cast. Like honestly,
That's the thing.
this entire cast, you can tell now they've got it locked. That these are friends both on screen and real life,
Hmm.
and I can't name a dud among them. I was compelled by literally every one of our main characters that we've come to know and love all the way from season 1 to season 3. Even someone who had virtually no screen time, that being Will,
Mm.
I loved.
The Castle Buyer scene.
Oh my god,
That was amazing. That was heart wrenching.
that hurt. I was
That
like,
did hurt.
no, don't sarcasm buyers, no. But
Because I mean, we've all been there where like your friends just aren't there for you, and you get so like you just want to destroy something, and you break something, and you're like, "Fuck, dude, I just broke something that I meant a lot to me," and then you're just like emotionally done. Like that
yeah,
is just we've all been there. It's so relatable, and he portrays it so perfectly.
seriously, Noah Schnapp, 3 seasons in a row, man,
For real.
dude. And speaking of the kids, like I know I mentioned at the top that yeah, I'm a shipper, whatnot. Let's talk about Mike and 11.
I know. Oh, so good. Some of the
Seriously, like this
funniest
is one of the
moments.
best TV couples ever.
I would give you almost like I say we should look at it this way too. Like I say we look at it that couple and then also Lucas and Max. I think if you look at the
Yeah,
four of those together, how like Lucas and oh
Max.
my gosh, thank you. You just said it. Lucas and Mike are like together, like playing off of each other. Like Lucas is giving Mike crappy advice, and then Max is over here actually giving 11 good advice, and then just how like those play off, and then getting the scene where Max gets 11 to spy on the boys was comedy gold. Oh my goodness. Like just the disgust that she gets from seeing these boys like talk about her in that way and then like farting and eating Doritos, and it was just like the most classic 15-14-year-old boy thing ever. And the way like those four relation or I'm sorry, the way those two relationships, those four people worked off each other in those different scenes was really good. It was portraying emotion in such a real and relatable way. I mean, everybody's had a relationship that goes through rough patches. That's just how it is.
Yeah, just look at me in case.
True. Just look at Case and everybody. I mean, come on.
I mean, come on.
No, we love you, Case.
We do. We really love you, Case. And speaking of like, one of the things that I'm actually really glad about is that, as you mentioned, these actors have been growing with the characters, and the characters have been growing with the show. And what I really appreciated was when Elle had her big "I dump your ass" scene
Yeah.
with Mike, which
Oh, that
A,
was so
was
good.
hilarious, but B, I love how Mike holds it in. I love how he's not miserable for the entire season like he was last time around. And because seriously, if he had been, I would have been like, "Oh God damn it, Mike!" But
It would have
no,
been boring.
it would have been boring because we've already been there. We've done that. But no, like watching him still try to act normal, though now he's back on the market.
It's like the
Even
most guy thing ever to like, I'm just gonna act like I don't care, but really I want her back so badly type of deal.
yeah, and then of course we have the greatest payoff ever when he has that freak out in episode 7 where he's like, I love her and I can't lose her again. And then Elle brings it back in one of the last episodes of the season, and then she says to him, I love you too. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
ah,
So good.
so good.
And I think the way that Millie Bobby Brown just handles that range of them, I mean, her character has ultimately been through the most, and I feel like
Yeah.
she's had to have probably the most emotional range out of any of these younger actors. So she just can't say enough about her. We all know she's amazing, but specifically in this season, how she goes from in love all the time, can't stop making out with her boyfriend, to realizing that he's not treating her like he should. So, you know what? I dump your ass. And he's like, wait, what? You can do that? And she's like, I'm out of here, dude. And Max is like, hell yeah. Like that whole thing. And then, Hopper gets, we'll get to Hopper, but he's all thrilled and happy for himself but he doesn't quite realize what he's dealing with at the same time. Because when you get two girls together, that's not always the best combination because they can get up to a lot. But the way that like Max and 11 become friends, and then it's back to again another range of emotion where when she's awkwardly around Mike, and she uses her telekinesis / force powers to give him snacks from the vending machine. It's like simple little interactions like that, and then he goes over and talks to her, and they kind of work through things slowly, but she doesn't come around right away. Like literally, when you think of all the nuances that any actor has to go through to make that relationship believable, because it goes the entire range of relationships in one season, essentially. And she's not even an actual adult yet, and she's able to pull this off. Like, that's pretty gosh darn amazing. Come on.
Yeah. She's going to win an Oscar by the time she's 25.
I would not be surprised. She's going to Jennifer Lawrence this bitch.
Hopefully she has a better career than Jennifer Lawrence. Sorry, J-Lo.
Well, Jennifer Lawrence, yeah, she has made some bad decisions, but she's still really good.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Pick better projects, I think, is all.
Yeah. I think she should have only done 2 X-Men films, then called it good with blockbusters.
She let the fans pressure her into another, I think.
I think that's what happened too. But let's talk about something really great here. And speaking of great relationships, let's talk about Joyce and Hopper.
So good.
Like,
and Alexi, don't forget the third wheel. Come on.
Hold on. So I know. No. So it's third and fourth wheel because Murray from season 2 is back. And first off, I love that character.
So weird.
He's so weird, but I love him.
But he's like the classic 80s nut job. Like the government is always watching it. Little did he know he was right back in the 80s. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so funny. Just
exactly. And here's the thing. At the end of season 2, I was convinced that Joyce and Hopper would have already gotten together like a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I was pleasantly surprised they didn't.
Yes.
And I'm actually glad that's not going to happen moving forward. Because otherwise, Hopper would have had no arc left. Because, the first season, his arc was he just needed to learn how to live again.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second arc was he needed to learn how to be a parent again. Third season, he had to learn how to love again.
True.
And that's what made everything with him so perfect. And I love how Joyce was unintentionally the one who brought him there. She wasn't trying to give him like advice or anything. Like she was just trying to, basically just bicker with him all the time because you know what? To be honest, can you name me one bad Joyce Hopper argument?
This season, every single time Joyce just cusses somebody out, those were always like my favorite scenes of hers. With Murray, she does it with Hop, like she just cussing everybody out, and it is so good because she gets to the end and then everyone's like cowed by it. It's like, oh yeah, you know what? You're actually right. Like, sorry. And it's like, yeah, I know I'm right. I know it sounds insane, but I'm right. Just listen to me for once, So yes, just the way that I would say the only thing that sucks is now it's basically like everyone that Joyce falls in love with dies, so she probably should just stop falling in love with people.
Or gets divorced.
Right. Yeah, but I'm talking about Sean Astin. Although it was awesome to see him come back for that little scene there, that little flashback. I know that was so. I love seeing him and stuff, man. He's not in enough stuff anymore. He needs to get out there and act some more. I know he's probably like sitting on millions of dollars that he still gets from Lord of the Rings and Goonies and shit like that. But come on, man.
Or he's still trying to save the world and whatnot. But yeah.
We need him. We still need him. He's too good, man. He's too awesome. He's such a lovable guy in general. But anyway, Hopper and Joyce, just the way that they're always like, you almost do get like a little sick of their bickering. I will say it does like kind of wear on you, but at the same time, it makes it feel real because nobody likes to just sit there and listen. Like, I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure you have, because everyone kind of does it. But like, if you are the third wheel and you're around a couple that is just arguing, that isn't your parents. I'm not talking about your parents.
Oh,
I'm talking about,
I'm not talking about them either. But
right, like some other.
Yeah.
I know you have, yeah. But for the viewers at home, I don't know, maybe there's like some 11-year-olds out there, but you'll get there, and it is the most uncomfortable thing ever. And I feel so bad for Alexi because he doesn't even know what they're saying. Like, he just has the emotion, like you could just hear the anger, and he's just like, I'm so surprised like he didn't have a scene where he snapped at them. I kind of felt like he should, but
well, see, but that's because he had his boyfriend Murray do it for them.
True, yeah.
But okay, so we talked about the relationships. Yeah, let's get into Hopper and just talk about that last scene with him.
I mean, you said you cried, so I'll let you go first on this one because I don't think I had quite the emotional response to it, but I mean, it still sucks. It's still sad.
Yeah, and first off, guys, he didn't survive.
No.
Because as I already said,
that would be the cheapest, most annoying.
It'd be cheap. It would be annoying, and what would he do for the next season? There's nothing left for him to do. But Hopper's and the thing is, Hopper's scene got me the hardest because it got me twice. It got me once during the actual moment where I didn't quite cry, but then once Elle is reading the letter,
yeah,
that was where I was just like, oh,
that was pretty hard.
Oh, fuck you, you Iron Man to this.
Because I was like, why is she reading something that we already know he says? And then he goes off on his tangent, and you're like, you son of a bitch! Like that is just so awesome. It's so good. It's like, like I honestly, now that we're talking about it, I want to go back and just watch just that scene again because I feel like that might be one of the best. One of the best scenes of the show. Entirely.
Oh, bar none. Like that's the other great thing about this show. All the finales have ended on the perfect note.
I would agree with that. 100%.
Season 1 did. Season 2 did at the school dance, and Season 3 did with everyone packing up the Byers' house. And, yeah. It was just one of those... And go back to Hopper, like... Yeah, David Harbour brought this character who initially is kind of unlikable. He's kind of an unlikable douche. But then the more time you spend with him, the more you start to realize, oh, wait. He's actually a real person.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many Jim Hoppers that I'm sure a lot of you guys and who are watching this know personally. I have actually had a couple in my life. You know, one of them's no longer with us. May you rest in peace. But Hopper was just such a relatable person. And then we saw him, like I said, become a father again in season 2, both metaphorically and officially, thanks to Paul Reiser, whatever the hell the name of his character was.
Yeah, I don't even know.
And then we see him be that overbearing dad in season 3, which I'm going to face facts. If I ever settle down, get married, and have kids, and one of them's a girl, I'm going to be that very same dad.
Yeah, especially when she has superpowers, like, how can you not be super protective? And, like, the whole world or underworld wants to destroy her, blah, blah, blah. And the best thing about David Harbour's performance throughout the 3 seasons is Hopper wears his emotions on his sleeve. Like, I can't even imagine, like, honestly, genuinely, even if you don't think acting is necessarily, like, the hardest job in the world, like, difficult, maybe, hard, I don't know. But for this character, I feel like it must be pretty emotionally wearing, because he is always going from one extreme to the next. He's either shouting or, like, dancing around the convenience store. I mean, he just goes, like, back and forth. He must get whiplash from having to act all these different scenes out. And then he gets beat on in other scenes. I mean, this dude, David Harbour, man, this is why I didn't even bother to watch the new Hellboy, because I don't want my image of him to be spoiled, because I was excited. I was like, oh, if anybody can make another Hellboy, it's him. I don't know who the fault lies with. I doubt it was necessary.
Interference.
Yeah, I would assume they just didn't know what they had and couldn't put something together. But I want to see him in more stuff. I really do, because I had no idea who he was until Stranger Things. And for right now, I'm perfectly happy keeping him in this world as he is Hopper. It's like seeing Alan Rickman as basically nobody besides Gruber and Snape. And that's kind of it. Even though he's an amazing actor and he does very well in all of his other performances, I mean, those two are just, this is that type of iconic in my mind. 20, 30 years down the road, when people are like, oh, do you remember Stranger Things, how good that was? To be like, yeah, 11, Hopper, David Hart. Yeah, exactly. That's what Millie Bobby Brown back when she was first starting out. Now she's exactly getting Oscars on the regular, like that sort of thing. That's how I imagine it to be. So good.
Pretty much. And since we're on the topic of Hopper is definitely dead, I do want to actually have a little fun with something, though. So the post-credit scene. I think the American who's being held in that cell, I'm pretty sure it's either Murray or it's the mayor.
Which awesome little turn by Carrie Elways there. That was so fun. That was like the mayor just kind of being this shit-eating type of douchey. So weird to see him in that role, but I was like, wait, is that? I think that's... And then I looked it up. I was like, it is Carrie. Oh my gosh. So Chris is looking it up right now because he's not sure.
No. Actually, I'm looking up someone else. Someone else who's in the cast. Because it's one of the shitheads who was at the paper.
Oh yeah.
Because I've seen him before, and I could swear to God it's Jake Busey.
With the stupid haircut. Yeah.
Oh dear God, it is Jake Busey.
Maybe it's him. That would be so funny. They're like trying to extricate secret information from him, but I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I assumed it was Murray just because he's like the information fanatic weirdo guy. But I like your idea. It could be the mayor too, because he was the one wheeling and dealing with the Russians in the first place.
Exactly. And he was their puppet, and he failed them. So, ergo, now they're going to punish him for it by feeding him to a Demogorgon.
And apparently, that makes me... Like, it raises so many awesome questions. Like, okay, have they opened a different portal now? Or did they somehow have DNA and create this thing? Did it hatch? Was it birthed? Like, how are we getting here? That's what's really interesting to me. And to bring up what for me was the weakest part was, while creepy, the fleshy mind flayer didn't quite pay off for me. It was very creepy to have an old lady eating fertilizer and rats exploding and all this and absorb and there's so much to talk about obviously over 8 hours of TV, but Billy's whole thing, that was amazing. I love that. Like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Thing, creepy as hell, so weird. But I just feel like the monster was too easy. Again, that was like one of those things that was just like, oh, it wasn't that hard to defeat once it finally came to the point where, they're just able to go in there. And it didn't feel like the stakes were maybe as high as the Demogorgon in the first place or something along those lines.
I half agree with you. I think what they should have done, because I liked what they did with it, but I think like as far as the fireworks at the mall sort of thing,
Right.
I love that sequence. But what I feel like they should have done was close the gate first, because that way then the mind flayer would be cut off
Right.
from the gate, but it wouldn't be able to, but it wouldn't have died on the spot. Which I'm not gonna lie, that to me was a little too easy. But if they did that thing where it's cut off from the gate, now it can't get the hive mind. It's now on its own, and then it gets blown up with fireworks. That to me would be a lot more fun, because that gives it a very Jaws kind of ending.
Instead of all you were really doing was like delaying them killing it easily. It's like you blow up the Trade Federation ship and all the droids go out type of thing. It's like you kill one White Walker and they all die. You know what I'm saying? Like you kill the Night King, they all die type of thing. So I think that going forward, it will be very interesting to see what happens. I feel like they're going to bring the actual non-fleshy version of the Mind Flayer into real, and then it's like, how do you even deal with that? I don't know. It's scary.
And is Elle gonna get her powers back by then?
True. Yeah, that's so weird. Like, is this a Spider-Man 2? Like, she, just can't get it up. Like, the confidence isn't there, or like, I kind of want some answers. I don't want it to be the Spider-Man 2 is like he literally just didn't have confidence in himself, and that's why he couldn't use his magic powers. Like, I hope there's a little bit.
I think it was that literally she used her powers so much over the course of that several hours, she was literally exhausted.
That makes sense.
And it might take her a couple more months to recover.
Mm-hmm. Does she recover in time? Now that could be kind of interesting. If you do it right, could be a little hokey, but if you do it right, it could be interesting to, she doesn't have the juice necessary. She's maybe got a little bit to, like fling some shit at him, but she can't like rip him in half or anything nuts like that. So until, they do enough, they feed her enough Eggos or something.
Or if she sees Mike get the crap slapped out of him a few more times.
Then she just goes total Sith. Because I kind of want to see, like, again, it's hard because obviously I'm not a screenwriter, and also it could be so cheesy, but you could do a Elle goes evil type of thing for a season. Like, it could be something you do without it being too worn out. I mean, again, you'd have to tread carefully on how you do it, but it would give, because again, what you were saying with Hopper, now my question is, where does she go from here? She's got her relationship, she's got her powers, essentially. I mean, when they're not worn out, she knows how to use them to a great extent. She's very comfortable with going into that, dark place and observing people. She's very comfortable with who she is as essentially a weapon now. Now what does she do? Where does it go from there? So I feel like they might need to do something like that.
See, my only thing with that is that if they do turn her into a weapon, that means they have to kill her. And I don't want that.
What if she gets killed and then she turns, like she's dying or she's about to die and she turns good at the last second, and the way she dies is by like sacrificing herself for her friends? I mean, that could be a really, like the Iron Giant, dude. That could be a very good way to end your show. I'm just saying. The Iron Giant is amazing.
It is, but
that would be so sad. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the Iron Giant was traumatizing as a kid, and I still freaking loved it. Like, I wanted to be the Iron Giant. I would run around in the yard like a weirdo pretending to be the Iron Giant. Like, come on. This is such a good movie. But I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to think. As soon as the post-credit scene was over, I was like, okay, where the hell are they going to go? Like, they can do anything they want now, essentially, as long as they up the stakes. And that's the hard part, right? And maybe that's why the Mind Flayer section, the Russians was interesting because that was spies and intrigue, and that did up the stakes because it's just some kids going up against a bunch of adults with guns. And Russians, we know, fictionally, and maybe in real life, have no compunction with killing kids. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's Red Dawn, dude. You're scared. You're like, holy crap, what the hell is going to happen? These guys are going to die. And then with the fleshy Mind Flayer is like, well, we're just going to cut him off from the source, and then he'll starve to death or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, cut him off from the brain, cut the spinal cord.
Yeah.
It's just, you got to up the stakes somehow in this fourth season. I think that's going to be their biggest challenge.
Well, actually, hold on. Then, yeah, in that post-credit scene, we're already there. Because that, I don't see that. We didn't see the gate being opened at another part of the world.
No.
And that Demogorgon was walking around and eating that one dude just fine.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Did they hatch him? Did they open another gate? I mean, they may have a smaller gate, or, like, who knows? Did they clone it? I mean, there could be. Did they just capture one somehow in the first season and it happened off screen? That would be kind of lame, but it's a possibility. But that will be those stakes. But as far as for these characters, you know, I think there needs to be something there. Evil L. I'm calling it.
I think time will have to tell. And one last note that I want to hit before we sign off is, speaking of sacrifices, let's finally talk about Billy. Because
So good.
honestly, if Dacre Montgomery does not get a Best Supporting Actor nom at next year's Emmys, what's wrong with all of you? Because that to me is how you portray a villain.
His interactions, first of all, like his first introduction into this season with Mrs. Wheeler.
I'm so glad they didn't
It
actually
was so
go there
creepy,
because,
and it was so funny. Like like how uncomfortable it made me. First of all, told me that I'm a good person. Second of all, told me that this is so like classic 80s. And again, yes, I'm agreeing with you. I'm glad it didn't go to any extra weird places, but it was like the way he portrayed it. And it's like such a false confidence, I feel like, you know, and that's something where you can take what you want from his performance, but it's like a false confidence. And that's where, with the Mind Flayer, you kind of get to where his real mind lies, because he's been the badass in the past, you know, but now he's not. He's just the slave, like the tool that's being used by some scary higher power. And again, like you said, man, the sacrifice, I mean, it was the best thing you could have done for that character, I think.
Yes. And while it doesn't redeem him in my eyes,
No.
it does redeem the character in the show.
Right.
And it does end him on a great note, especially with all the blood and like all the effects. Like, honestly, this season got bloody, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, as soon as the rats started exploding, I was like, what is this? I was like, this is rated TV 14. What?
Oh, dude, are you kidding me? The scene with Elle's leg?
Yeah.
That was the Descent kind of shit, and I loved every second of it. But no, like, the thing about Dacre Montgomery that I think that again, just like Joe Keery, it's all in the face. Every single great scene he's in, his facial expressions just sell all the crazy things that are going on in his brain, or what's left of it, because now he's an empty shell. You know, it's so powerful.
He's
Like,
so creepy too. Like, it's
hell
crazy.
yeah. Actually, call me crazy, but could you see him like if let's say there actually is like a Knights of the Old Republic adaptation or whatever, could you see him playing Darth Malak?
Uh, mm, I feel like he might, in my mind, be a little young. But if you somehow,
No, but it's been like just the character. Like even if
yeah,
like 10
yeah,
years from now.
yeah, I could see him. I don't think it'll take them 10 years to make it, but sure, yeah, I could see him in that if he were older. Yeah, because I mean, I would assume he's in his early to mid 20s right now, Dacre Montgomery.
Yeah.
So. But I think he also will have. I think basically all of these guys, except for maybe like Will and
Oh.
Lucas. I just don't know. I mean, they give good performances. Don't get me wrong. That's not to knock them, but I'm just trying to think of like, there's so many standouts. You try to think like who. I mean, look at damn Harry Potter. I mean, you really only have a couple of standouts of the entire. And I'm not talking about the big three. Like I'm talking about all Ginny Weasley, the the Weasley twins. I mean, look at all these people that didn't really go anywhere. It was
Yeah,
kind of just two
like
people.
like Draco is the only one who's still working out of them.
What you mean? Besides Harry and
Yeah,
Hermione?
yeah,
You mean?
yeah.
Right, yeah. And even then, it's not like he's in any major thing. Like the last huge movie he was in was Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Like that was a while ago.
Yeah.
So, which is not to knock him in any. I think he's good. I just don't know if he's a leading actor in any sense of the word. But Millie Bobby Brown, Dacre Montgomery, Joe Keery, those three, I think those are probably your big standouts. And then, I mean, Finn Wolfhard already had his turn in It. So, I mean, he's solid. I mean, he has nothing to worry about at all. And I think you didn't see Godzilla King of Monsters.
Not yet.
But I will say, just for the sake of Millie Bobby Brown, she did well with what she was given. She was
Okay.
not by any means the focus of the movie. Of course, it's monsters murdering each other. And Vera Farmiga stole the show, as she tends to do. But Millie Bobby Brown did really well with some of the more emotional scenes. Like, I'm pretty sure she can just automatically cry on command because she gave some seriously emotional, like, performances in certain scenes. There are some scenes where it's like, ooh.
Again, during the scenes involving her leg.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, dude. Ugh.
Ugh.
The
Like I was,
CGI was so good at that part too. Like that shit looked real. That looked real.
yeah, that was
That was-
that was scary.
Yeah.
But yeah. So let's just get into some final thoughts then, real fast, Ryan. I'm just gonna simply say this. I think this is the best season yet.
Hard agree.
And like season 1 was great. Season 2 had a couple clunky moments, but overall was again really effing solid. And then season 3, it expands the world. It really throws in some stakes. And while the quote unquote main threat wasn't as bad as it could have been, it was still really cool. And Billy was a great villain.
Yeah. This I would agree. This is the best season because the first one, it has the tough job of setting up this entire world, and it does that incredibly well. I mean, this is similar to things we've seen before, but ultimately, in its own amalgamation, it's something completely different. So you set up that world, and it's awesome, and it's a great, fun adventure. In the second one, the stakes are sufficiently turned up, but there's one or two episodes as a whole, and Elle's arc struggles and is boring in some places and also just doesn't make that much sense. But once you get to season 3, that almost pays off in a way. The fact that she's gone through what she's gone through and her character has agency now. At first, her life revolves around a boy, and then she finds out that she can pick her own damn clothes and stuff like that. It's just like seeing her become a normal kid with superpowers, obviously, but in a sense, a normal kid now. She's not a kid with wires on her head crushing Coke cans. So there's so much growth that happens over the course of this season. And even in season 2, I mean, every time they added new characters, Billy, Max, Robin, they do such a good job. Murray, it's interesting. Alexi, I mean, they are able to write these characters so well, and they keep you wanting more. They keep you wanting to know what's going to happen next, which I definitely want to know what's going to happen in season 4. So I consider that a success. I was not really bored at any point during this. My really only problem was that some things just came a little too easy. But again, they are kids. They don't have weapons necessarily. So it's not like you can expect them to start shooting the shit out of the Russians and then that's how, there's not going to be firefights. I'm not expecting that necessarily.
Would have been great, but no.
Could you imagine if Steve got his hands on like some revolver or something? He's just like, that would have been so funny. But yeah, all in all, so already hating that I'm going to have to wait like 2 years to see the next season. So
I believe the next season actually is already confirmed for 2020, and that is the end of the show.
Okay. And that's perfect, man. Like 4 seasons, don't overdo it. Don't try to string this thing out because at a certain point you're going to have to jump the shark and then people are going to get pissed.
Exactly.
So,
and
kill off L, end the show right. I just like seeing your face every time I say it.
In the words of Captain Jack
comment down
Sparrow,
below if you think they should kill L.
Comment down below, indeed. Ryan, I have to ask. I just have one request of you. In the words of Captain Jack Sparrow, stop blowing holes in my ship. And with that, guys, thanks for tuning in to our review of Stranger Things Season 3. Spoilers. Duh. Otherwise, why the fuck were you watching this?
Yeah, if you were watching this whole thing, like, still go see it. Trust me. We left out a lot. There's still so much.
It's great. Because we left out a crap ton. Like, we didn't talk about Nancy and Jonathan, of course.
Oh my gosh, we didn't talk about Nancy and Jonathan, dude. This show's too long. That's why we can't talk about everything.
Exactly.
Nancy and Jonathan do have a really good storyline. Like, her as a feisty reporter, like, she actually gets more to do in this show in this season than maybe she had at any point. Yeah, she did get to bonk some Demogorgons in the head in the first one.
And then she uncovered the conspiracy in season 2. But
yeah, that was all right. It was good, but it was all right. But in this one, yeah, she's like a self-made woman at this point. It was badass, dude. I loved her scenes.
And one last thing about Nancy, like, the thing I really appreciated about her in this season was that she actually realized that the consequences of her actions don't only affect her, they also affect Jonathan. And if she and Jonathan are going to keep being a thing, which
they are so good together.
Like, again, just like Mike and
Such
Eleven, they are a perfect couple.
Yeah.
Dude,
the writers of this show, I cannot wait to see what the Duffer Brothers do next, man.
Exactly. So, yeah, again, you guys, Duffer Brothers, you guys are freaking killing it with this show. Thank you so much. And Ryan, where can the good folks find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Clan McClellan and Instagram Vintage Sights and Sounds. And also, I host Downtune Dissection on this very channel. We took last week off. It was kind of a holiday, and I found a new album that I want to talk about, so I've been giving it some listens. So I'm going to talk some deathcore upcoming here pretty soon, so get ready for that.
Oh, boy.
And also upcoming, Chris doesn't know about it, but I just remembered now that I meant to tell him, we're going to be talking some Lamb of God in the upcoming weeks as well, because guess who listened to Ashes of the Wake? Yeah, that was me. I listened to it for the first time. I know, I probably should have listened to it like a million years ago, but I've heard some of their other stuff, just I think maybe like one song off that album. But now I've heard the whole thing, and we're going to talk about it.
Damn right we are. And, of course, you guys can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Stardust, Letterboxd, and Discord at Skywalker Doman. You guys can follow this very channel on Twitter and Instagram at D2A Channel. Please like our Facebook page. And, yeah, go check out our Schmodown reactions. Go check out the Who Cares Anime podcast. We just had Winston Marshall on where, oh, dear God, we let racist Twitter have it over their nonsense about the Ariel casting, and it was glorious. So until then, guys, until our next episode, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and please tweet this out. Let the cast of Stranger Things know that we loved this show. And until then, you know what to do. Take care.